No one noticed the broken, fading German Shepherd pup. No one. Until a wandering stray cat did something no one would have expected. Bruno had been lost for what felt like forever. The forest swallowed him whole, its tall trees pressing close. Together like walls, its shadows stretching longer than the day itself. Every sound was strange and unfriendly, a crack of branches, the whisper of unseen wings, the soft growl of something moving just out of sight. His tiny golden body shook as fear and tiredness weighed him down like heavy stones. He was caught in a cruel nest of thorny vines, the sharp brambles digging deeper every time he tried to move. His soft whimpers carried no answer, only echoing, back to him through the trees. He didn't know how long he had been trapped there. Maybe hours, maybe more. His owner's scent had faded away completely. The voice that once called his name with warmth was gone. All that remained now was the bitter cold, the sting of scratches across his legs, and the tight ache of panic pressing inside his chest. Bruno's ears twitched at the faintest rustle. Something was moving. From the undergrowth, a shape slid forward, low to the ground, silent as smoke. Out stepped a cat, ginger-colored, his fur messy and unkempt, patchy in places like it had been torn by time. He carried the smell of pine needles and old rain, a scent only the wild could give. His paws touched the earth without a sound, though even the fallen leaves dared not stir under him. He stopped a few paces away and sat, curling his tail neatly, his sharp amber eyes fixed on the trembling pup. He didn't blink. His gaze was steady, piercing, unreadable, like the forest itself was staring through him. This cat had a name: Rusty. Bruno whimpered again, his voice weaker now, almost swallowed by the stillness around them. His ears flattened against his head. But Rusty didn't flinch, didn't even move a whisker. For a long, suspended moment, they only looked at one another. A frightened, mud-covered pup tangled in thorns and a stray cat hardened by survival, measuring him with eyes that seemed to weigh every choice. Rusty's ears flicked, a small, quick motion. He could turn and walk away. He often did. He had seen suffering before. Abandoned kittens, broken birds, hikers who wandered too far. Survival left no room for pity. And yet, he stayed. Slowly, with care, Rusty rose to his paws. His body remained low and cautious, each step deliberate, as though approaching something fragile. His tail swayed behind him in a calm rhythm. Bruno froze, holding his breath. He didn't know if this cat meant help or harm. All he knew was that for the first time since being lost, he was not completely alone. Rusty reached the thorns and lowered his head, eyes sharp as they studied the vines. He pressed a paw forward, nudging one bramble aside, then another. Carefully. At first, then with more strength, he pushed until the snarled vines began to give way. The thorns tugged cruelly at Bruno's fur, pulling yelps from his small body. But the pup did not resist. Somehow he knew the cat wasn't here to hurt him. Bit by bit, the snare loosened. One final push, and Bruno tumbled free, collapsing onto the damp forest floor. He lay there panting, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths, his strength nearly gone. Rusty stepped back, tail flicking once as if to say, "It's done." He could leave now. But then Bruno stirred. With what little strength remained, he leaned forward and touched his tongue gently to Rusty's paw. Just once. A small, grateful lick. Rusty froze. The gesture startled him more than any thorn ever could. The touch wasn't the claw of another cat, nor the desperate nip of prey. It was something else, something unfamiliar, something soft. His body tensed, every muscle on edge. He had spent years avoiding closeness. Touch meant danger, fights, pain. Affection was a language he had long forgotten, maybe never truly learned. His fur bristled. His instinct told him to pull away, to vanish back into the dark. But he didn't. He did not hiss. He did not swipe. He only stared down at the little pup, eyes narrowed, not in anger but in something far harder to name. Confusion, maybe even recognition. Bruno did not move again. He lay still, eyes half closed, as though he trusted the cat completely to decide what happened next. Rusty glanced at the darkening woods. The sun was dipping low, shadows climbing high. Night meant cold. Night meant hunger. Night meant predators. He could leave the puppy to its fate. He could disappear as he always had, but the trembling in Bruno's gaze stopped him. Something in it refused to let him walk away. With a slow, steady flick of his tail, Rusty turned, not to leave, but to lead. Padding away into the forest with careful, deliberate steps, he created a path. Behind him, Bruno, weak but alert, pushed himself to his paws and limped forward. His legs shook. His paws burned. Yet he followed. The forest ahead was darkening, its shadows stretching long. The air was colder now, carrying sounds that made Bruno flinch. A snapping twig, a distant howl, the creak of branches in the wind. Every instinct in him screamed to run, but his body was too weak. Still, the small golden pup kept moving, eyes fixed on the steady figure just a few steps ahead. Rusty never looked back. He never spoke, never made a sound. But when Bruno stumbled, too far behind, the cat stopped and waited. He waited until the pup found the strength to rise again. Then he walked on, his paws silent, his body calm. And little by little, Bruno began to understand. The cat wasn't leading him into danger. He was guiding him forward. When Bruno collapsed again, too tired to rise, panic bubbled in his chest. Rusty had vanished into the undergrowth. The pup whined in fear, but then, as sudden as he had left, the cat returned. Something clutched between his teeth. He dropped it, a small mouse, lifeless. Rusty crouched, ate a few bites, and then pushed the rest toward Bruno with his paw. The pup sniffed it, hesitant, then ate. It wasn't the warm food he once knew, but it filled his empty belly. More than that, it carried meaning. So they moved. Again. Slower now, but together. By nightfall, Rusty brought them to a shallow creek. The water was cold and clean. Bruno drank deeply, relief washing through his tired body. His paws trembled, but his heart felt steadier. Stars blinked into the sky above, and Rusty curled himself nearby. Not too close, but not far either. Bruno edged closer, pressed his small body against the cat's side. Rusty didn't move away. And for the first time since being lost, Bruno drifted into deep, dreamless sleep, warmed by a quiet presence beside him. Morning light returned, soft and golden. Bruno stirred, his body still sore, but his spirit less heavy. Rusty was there, breathing evenly, his watchful eyes opening just as Bruno stretched weakly. When they set off again, the air carried a new scent, faint but unmistakable. It wasn't pine or moss. It was something warmer, something human. Bruno's ears perked, his steps quickened despite the ache. Rusty noticed, but kept to the edges of shadow, always leading, never leaving. The trees thinned, grass spread open, fences appeared, gardens, and then a cottage. Its small garden bloomed with roses and lavender swaying in the wind, and there, kneeling among the flowers, was an old woman. Her silver hair glowed beneath her straw hat, her voice humming softly as she worked. Rusty crouched low, still, watchful. But Bruno. Bruno could not stop. His paws carried him forward, slow, weak, but forward. The woman looked up, startled at first, then her eyes widened with gentle concern. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered. She set her tools aside and reached out. Bruno collapsed into her hands. The last thing he felt before sleep took him was the soft warmth of her touch lifting him into safety. The woman carried Bruno into her cottage, her movements slow but steady, as if she had done this before. The air inside was warm, smelling faintly, of lavender and something freshly baked. She placed him gently on a soft rug in the living room. Bruno lay still, watching her disappear into another room. Moments later, she returned with a bowl of water. "Here you go, sweetheart," she said softly, setting it down. He drank eagerly, water dripping from his muzzle. Food came next. Tender chicken mixed with rice. Each bite brought warmth to his empty belly, and his tail thumped weakly against the rug. When he was done, she cleaned his muddy fur with warm, soapy water, each stroke of the towel promising safety he thought he'd never find again. But through it all, Bruno's eyes kept drifting toward the window. Beyond the glass, hidden partly, by the hedge sat a ginger cat, Rusty. His eyes never left the pup. The woman noticed and smiled softly. "A friend of yours," she murmured. Without another word, she set a bowl of tuna on the porch. Rusty hesitated, his tail flicking once before he padded forward to eat. That night, Bruno slept by the fire, warm and safe. Rusty stayed outside, a shadow among the flowers. And somehow, Bruno knew the cat wasn't leaving. Not yet. Days passed, and Bruno's strength slowly returned. Each morning, Emma greeted him with a warm smile, setting down a small bowl of food as though it were a gift she was happy to give. She treated the sores on his paws with careful, patient hands, speaking to him in the same soft, steady voice she had used that first day in the garden. When she looked at him, there was always a gentleness in her eyes, a quiet joy that seemed to grow each time his tail wagged. Her cottage became a safe haven, quiet, warm, and filled with the scent of lavender and baking bread. Bruno began to feel that this was not just shelter, it was care, and it was meant for him. Yet his gaze often drifted to the window. Outside, Rusty's ginger form moved between the rose bushes and the tall grass, a constant, watchful shadow. Emma noticed, too. She would sometimes step outside, speaking softly to the cat, even though she knew he might not come closer. At first, Rusty stayed hidden in the hedge. A few days later, he began to linger near the porch, waiting for the small bowl of tuna Emma left for him. By the end of the week, he was resting just outside the back door. Every day, Rusty edged a little closer, and every time Bruno saw him, his tail wagged. Having Emma's gentle presence inside and Rusty's steady watch outside made Bruno feel anchored in a world that had once been cold and uncertain. Emma, seeing this connection, often found herself smiling, her heart warmed by the unlikely bond between the two strays. Meanwhile, she had been making quiet efforts to find Bruno's owner. She pinned flyers with his picture to the boards at the grocery store, the post office, and the local vet clinic. She asked neighbors and shopkeepers, but none had heard of a missing German Shepherd pup. Days turned into weeks, and hope faded. Though her affection for Bruno was deep and she had grown fond of Rusty's quiet loyalty, Emma knew the truth. Her health wasn't strong enough for the demands of raising a large, energetic dog. One bright afternoon, a pickup truck rolled into the lane. Out stepped Noah, her nephew, tall and broad-shouldered with kind eyes and the scent of fresh earth clinging to his clothes. He worked a small farm outside town, raising chickens and tending a few pastures. "I want you to meet someone," Emma said with a small smile. Noah crouched, letting Bruno sniff his hands. The pup caught the scent of animals, grass, and open fields. It was a good scent, honest and steady. As Emma and Noah spoke quietly in the kitchen, Bruno didn't understand the words, but he sensed it. Something in his world was about to change. Rusty, watching from the garden, seemed to know it too. The morning was crisp, with a pale sun casting long shadows across Emma's garden. Bruno lay on the rug by the fire, half asleep until the low rumble of an engine drifted in from outside. His ears twitched. Through the window, He saw the familiar pickup truck pulling into the lane. Noah stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel. He carried a sturdy crate in one hand, the kind Bruno had seen before at the vet. Emma's voice was warm, buttoned with something else. A heaviness. "All right, Bruno," she murmured, kneeling to stroke his head. "It's time, sweetheart." Bruno didn't understand, not fully. But as Noah came inside, crouching to greet him with a smile, the pup's eyes darted toward the back door. Outside, Rusty sat in his usual spot by the hedge, watching intently. Noah clipped a leash gently to Bruno's collar. The pup hesitated, looking back at Emma, then at Rusty, his tail wagadance, uncertain. They stepped out into the cool morning air. Emma followed them out into the garden, her steps slow, as if each one carried a weight she couldn't set down. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, knuckles pale, the way one holds something fragile that might break at any moment. She drew in a deep breath, blinking rapidly against the sting in her eyes, determined not to let the tears fall just yet. From the shadow of the hedge, Rusty rose with the fluid grace of a hunter, though there was no hunt in his mind now. He padded forward a few steps, each movement measured and deliberate, as though crossing an invisible line he had kept for days. His tail was low, not in fear, but in quiet acceptance. His amber eyes stayed locked on Bruno. At the truck, Noah lifted Bruno into the crate in the back. The pup turned, pressing his nose to the wire door, letting out a soft whine. Emma reached in, giving him one last scratch behind the ears. "You'll be happy, Bruno. I promise," she whispered. Rusty remained a few yards away, unmoving as if rooted to the spot. He didn't meow or approach, but his amber rays held the weight of a quiet farewell. As the truck rolled down the lane, Bruno's gaze stayed fixed on the shrinking figure of the ginger cat. He gave a soft bark as if calling out, but the sound was swallowed by the distance. Rusty watched until the truck disappeared around the bend, the silence of the garden settling in its place. Inside the crate, Bruno lay down, his heart thudding. He didn't know exactly where he was going, but he knew this. He was leaving behind the woman who had saved him and the cat who had guided him here. The road stretched long and winding as Noah's truck carried Bruno away from Haven Ridge. The pup lay in the crate, the hum of the engine, a steady rhythm beneath him. Every so often he lifted his head to look out the small back window, as if hoping to catch one last glimpse of the garden, of Emma's gentle smile, and of the silent guardian who had watched over him. But the road gave him only trees, hills, and sky. When they reached Noah's farm, the air smelled different, fresh, open, filled with the scent of grass, hay, and other animals. There were wide fields, a sturdy barn, and the distant clucking of chickens. Noah opened the crate, and Bruno stepped out, cautiously, sniffing the earth beneath his paws. This was a good place, safe, but it was not the same. Days turned into weeks. Bruno began to settle into his new life, running across the fields, chasing the wind, and sleeping on the porch in the afternoon. Son. Noah was kind, his voice steady, and his hands gentle. The farm was full of new friends, new scents, and new adventures. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments when the sky turned gold at sunset and the shadows grew long, Bruno's thoughts drifted back to the cat. He remembered the sharp amber eyes, the silent patience, and the way Rusty had walked ahead through the dark forest without ever looking back, yet never letting him fall behind. He remembered the warmth of lying beside him by the creek and the steady comfort of his presence outside Emma's cottage. Back in Haven Ridge, Rusty lingered near Emma's home for a time, the garden now quieter without the pup's clumsy joy. Eventually, he turned away and slipped back into the forest. The old life returned, hunting, patrolling, surviving. But something had changed. The memories of Bruno and Emma stayed with him, woven into the quiet spaces between the trees. He had learned what it meant to care, to give, and to be given to. And though he walked alone again, he was no longer the indifferent stray he once was. The forest closed around him as before. Yet somewhere deep within, there remained the warm echo of a bond that had once broken through his guarded heart, a flicker of light he would carry through the shadows.